Let's get into the morning newspapers. We say hello, good morning to Michelle Dewberry and Calvin O'Sullivan. Very nice seeing you both. Michelle, here's a story that you touched upon last week, and there was a lot of interest in what you had to say. But the whole idea that refugees, or some of them, or a proportion of them, would be being groomed by IS. Who's making this claim?
Yeah, so this is the education minister in Lebanon. He's come out and he said people need to be aware and mindful. He's got a huge concern that ISIS are infiltrating some of these camps and these refugees and creating organised groups of jihadists and dispersing them amongst these refugees. And he has grave concerns that they're going to be attacking Europe. Now, actually, as a normal person living in London, this scares me.
Yeah, but is he any evidence for this?
Well, what he's saying is that he sees refugees day in, day out. He's saying that he's on the ground, he has a gut feeling, because he all of a sudden sees these young men, and, you know, they come along and they're not educated, they're not well fed, they're not well dressed and all the rest of it. And then he sees them being turned out in organised groups that are dressed well, that suddenly know what they're doing and where they're going, and they seem to have this quite clear plan. And I think a lot of this is, it's a conversation that needs to be had, because it's not racist or scaremongering to suggest that this is a potential threat. I personally think it's a potential threat. I think that ISIS, they've said many, many times that they want to wage war on the West. They've got an opportunity now to send refugees.
All right, but what's your solution to that? If that's your gut feeling, like his, what's your solution?
Well, this is where it gets very tricky, isn't it? Because we need to have a situation where we know who is coming into the country if you decide to put people in the country. For me personally,
you're in favour of what the Prime Minister did yesterday, going out there to the refugee camps in Lebanon and saying, look, if you're going to come in, you're going to come via something like this.
Yeah, so what I think is, you know, I'm not in politics, I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I think that you look at the aid money that you're sending, you send it over to those places, so into neighbouring countries or into places like Syria where they've got these camps. You make those conditions as good as they possibly can be to offer as much help as you possibly can. And for anyone that wants to then still come into Europe, you need to understand who they are. Now, this is going to be a very challenging task to achieve. But one of the primary things that I think you need to start by doing is have this conversation, because you'll see people on Twitter now and they'll be calling me all kinds of names for daring to suggest that some of these people might have ulterior motives. I'm not racist and I'm not scaremongering. I'm actually quite scared of the prospect that my country is going to be attacked by people that we have voluntarily let in, and we need to have the conversation properly.
So you think this is a Trojan horse?
I think there
are millions leaving places like Syria and Afghanistan, and they're currently holed up in Lebanon and Turkey, and Cameron's solution is deal with them there. And as Angela Merkel found out only yesterday, that if you just say come one, come all, then the numbers will be vast. ISIS have threatened to do exactly this, to infiltrate and to come to the West and to cause mayhem. And, you know, would be very foolish not to listen to what Michelle's saying.
It's always foolish that you can't just suddenly round up all of the young men with no families who look sort of kind of well-to-do and just say, well,
no,
but they might be economic migrants seeking a better life for their family ahead of the rest of the family coming through with them.
But we have to start by stopping being too politically correct, and we have to start by even being honest about things as they stand. Because even when I sit here and say, God, look at that telescreen, they're mainly young men, people jump on me and go, what are you saying, how dare you? Well, sorry, they are. And for me, if I'm fleeing a war zone, and I said this last week, if I'm truly fearing for my life, I'll take my wife, my sister, my siblings, the people I love with me. I would not leave them behind.
There are estimates that as many as 80% of the migrants are young men between the age of 18 and 25 on their own. So you wouldn't be wrong to suspect that they're just seeking a Western life. They're not necessarily fleeing death and oppression.
Or they could just be pioneering for the rest of their family, going over as the strongest.
Well, that's what they say, but I have my doubts.
Okay, let's move on.